And that was the trailer for Charm City Kings, now streaming on HBO Max. This is a big ass show that we're just basically advertising HBO Max on, but I'm here for it. They keep coming, as they say in the realm of hip hop, and since this movie stars a rapper, I think it's fitting to say, as far as Charm City Kings goes, that good shit. That's what this is. Not without its flaws, but a very good watch. Another winner from HBO Max in terms of original movies. I know I was a little higher on Unpregnant than I think you were, Joe, if I'm not mistaken. But they've made a name for a couple good movies so far. An American Pickle I thoroughly enjoyed as well.
I'll say this, like, in terms of their first up-to-bat original content, they have succeeded Netflix, Amazon, and Hulu movies, like, in terms of quality. Like, they knocked it out of the park.
For sure. I mean, it really goes to show the drudgery Disney Plus put us through upon launch, but that's neither here nor there. Yeah. Charm City Kings, though, first things first, it immediately feels like a blend of a lot of different coming-of-age movies. The two that came to mind for me, I think the inevitable one, it's even referenced at one point in the movie, is The Karate Kid, especially in the context of the two characters, Mouse, the main character played by Jahi Di'Allo Winston, and then you have Blacks played by the Philly rapper Meek Mill. You have him kind of serving as like the Mr. Miyagi figure, for lack of a better term, to Mouse. But the one movie I will say, just to start us off, that this movie reminded me of a lot was A Bronx Tale. This movie's very similar to A Bronx Tale in a lot of different ways. You can even look at, and I'll get into this later about Meek Mill specifically, his character. You can even look at him as like Sonny in A Bronx Tale, and Will Catlett, who plays Detective Rivers, who is kind of Mouse's, as De Niro, as kind of Mouse's guardian father figure of sorts. So I thought that was cool. But this is a really engrossing story. As familiar as it is, there's a lot of tropes in this movie, but I think it's offset by a lot of really good, like, engrossing moments just about childhood and you know what I mean? Finding your direction and leaning on your friends. And also, can I just say, you might not recognize most of the names in this movie, but Christ, this is an excellent showcase of young talent. So many good performances throughout. I want to give a shout out before we go into anything. Jahi Di'Allo Winston, who is going to be a star. If on the right track, he is going to be a star. He is cool. He's got a little swagger, but he also has an innocence about him too. He's really good at emoting on screen too. Like, he's believable. He's captivating. Danielle Tremaine Hansley, who plays his buddy Lamont, and Kesey Curtis, who plays, swear to God, love that name, who's really fun comic relief. And these characters are so good. Even, I have to say, Millen Ray, too, who plays Shay, sort of the love interest of the movie, too. These characters are all archetypes to their own degree, but they're so well performed and lived in by these young actors that it makes you forgive and even forget that. And that was an immediate takeaway for me in Charm City Kings. A lot to unpack with this one. I'll throw it over to you, Joe.
You totally hit the nail on the head when it comes to, like, it being a coming of age story, especially comparing it to Karate Kid, which they do in the film. And you know what, the Bronx Tale thing, I see it more now as I'm rewatching the trailer here while we're talking, and just like little scenes keep popping up, and I'm just putting the dialogue into my head. Yeah, man. I mean, this movie for me, God, like, I actually, surprisingly, even though like it is kind of a dark movie at times, and it gets really twisted near the end, it was a lot of fun. Going into this whole world of this like dirt bike underground thing that they have in Baltimore, it reminded me so much of the first Fast and Furious, where it's like, you know, you're going into this world where, you know, they have like this underground street racing that's going on, or like, you know, this thing that all the young people go to. Here it's a city, it's during the summertime, every Sunday, bikes just going up and down the street doing tricks on them and everything. And it brought me back to like that again, because it's like, for me, who grew up watching the Fast and Furious movies, where like the first three were mostly about that before they started chasing down Russians with nuclear submarines. It brought me back to that whole feeling, and I really enjoyed seeing like just that whole aspect again of like race culture. Race as in racing, not like, color people and everything.
Yeah.
And just like, this whole atmosphere of just like partying with like vehicles and everything. It really reminded me a lot of that. And again, not to like just copy off of Steve, but yeah, the performances here by the young kids themselves that he mentioned, they're all great. And even Meek Mill, which was a big surprise, he's pretty good in the movie too. In terms of like rappers who transition to actors, I gotta say, he did a pretty good job here as his mentor character.
Yeah, and before I send it over to you, Dom, I will say this. I love the movie Spring Breakers by Harmony Korine, but there's a reason, on top of his jail stint, there's a reason Gucci Mane's acting career really didn't take off. And I love Gucci Mane, believe you me. I love Gucci Mane as a rapper, but there's a reason his career did not take off. Meek Mill's got a chance to be an actor here. He very, very good. I'll talk more about that soon. Dom, your general thoughts, though, Charm City Kings.
Yeah, man, this is an engrossing movie, and this is an absolute journey that you take with these kids, particularly Mouse. And when you look back on it towards 2/3 of the film, or even like at the end, you really, really got to know these people.
Mm-hmm.
You really got to know this culture and this world, and there is nothing more fascinating to me than that feeling of just being like, damn, we really went somewhere in 2 hours. Like we really went from the top of Mount Chiliad and we raced down the bottom.
You could tell like when
I
you're
understood that reference.
You could tell when you're doing like a really good coming of age story, because when you start looking at the main character, the kid, as like they're going through moments of their life, and like, he's put in a situation like, you better not do it. Like when someone's like, hey, can I ride that bike real quick? And the entire time I'm like, dude, come on, man. Like, you could tell like that's doing the coming of age story stuff perfectly.
The pain, the highs, the sorrow, the everything. You get to know this kid, and I'm gonna repeat the same thing here because it needs to be said for this guy. Jahi Di'Allo Winston freaking knocked it out of the park. I might even go so far as to say a potential like Oscar nom, because and it's give me vibes to I forget her name, from Beast of the Southern Wild.
Well, Venzine Wallace.
Yeah. I need to watch again. The cast here is pretty damn good. And I should say, I did not know about this movie at all going in, which you could say a lot about you probably noticed a pattern. But really this one just completely snuck out of nowhere for me. And when I first saw it, I was like, what's this Wire wannabe? What is this? You're trying to be here. And I was getting some GTA San Andreas vibes, not gonna lie.
It's because he's wearing a tank top and jeans throughout most of the movie.
Might as well. And but dude, like how they handle at this point, what is a massive cliche of like, oh yeah, I'm a kid from the streets of Baltimore, the streets of Philly, from the streets of South Side of Chicago, from the streets of Oakland. I'm like, Jesus Christ, come on, dude. Can we show black people in a different light, perhaps? I understand that is actually what millions of people do go through, but like maybe show them as rich New York authors in Manhattan with Bill Murray as their dad. I don't know. That was a different case altogether. On the Rocks, which I did not enjoy particularly much at all. But for this movie, they actually handled it in a surprisingly fresh way, and I think it's because I really felt its absence here in a good way, in that like there's no drive-bys, right? There's no drive-bys. There's no explicit like, yeah, I'm going to do coke off the table. It's like there's no explicit.
No prostitution.
No prostitution. Nothing like and it's like it's a celebration of the black culture in not just in Baltimore, but in I guess in Philly as well. Because this isn't actually a scene from Charm City Kings. This is from the first Creed movie where where Creed is doing his montage, but then the biker the dirt bike crew comes in, and that's that whole montage, which is one of my favorite scenes of that movie. But apparently it's a big thing on the East Coast, in the Northeast, which is the vibe I've got. And I don't actually know, but apparently it's a big thing there. And just that the celebration of that, obviously exploring, yes, the darker element. These are the streets, so yeah, there's gonna be some shady things. There's gonna be some criminal element here, but it's not like, where the criminal element is this huge thing that is, it's like, yeah, we got 100 dudes and like half of them are going to get shot in the head in this movie. It's like, no. It's very grounded. It's very close to the heart. The crime feels like something that you could actually see, like in maybe, if you lived in those neighborhoods, or maybe not too far off here in Chicagoland. But just that sense of being grounded, not being too heavy, just being real about it, being frank.
Yes.
And then at the same time, yes, bringing me on that journey and not making it too fantastical, because really, dudes like doing wheelies on these bikes while living through the conditions that they realistically do live in, that is fascinating in and of itself. Yeah. And seeing the eyes through the charm, through the wonder of this kid trying to make it is so cool. And what I'm trying to get at is that this movie captures that so well and so satisfying that I am so happy for it here.
Yeah, I'll say this, even though, and it's a critique of this film a lot, not just, I'm not the only one who's brought it up. There's, it's probably the most common critique of the film, is that it is cliche to a point. It does follow the coming of age tropes, which it truly does. But at the same time, though, it also doesn't, it's not overwrought. It's not schmaltzy. It's not overbearing in that respect. It doesn't lay on thick the pathos that you might expect, which it could very easily do given the setting, given the characters, given the situations. But as Dominic said, it's actually in some ways a gleeful celebration of this culture.
Yeah.
And a gleeful celebration of like being like in some of being black, and making the most of what you have. Even a little bit I saw echoes of Queen and Slim, because Queen and Slim has that overarching idea too, being proud of blackness and being proud of that. And it's great it's refreshing to see that. I always say cinema's better when you have many different voices too being heard, and that's on display here. Before we go any further, we gotta mention, we've talked about Winston, we've talked about Jahi Di'Allo Winston, who I think we can all agree is great. But Meek Mill is really the star here for a star here for a lot of reasons. The first thing I took note is his body language. His character Black's, his body language is louder than his words. Like his looming presence on Mouse and on the dirt bike community of Baltimore. He honestly, not only Sonny in A Bronx Tale, who he also reminded me of? Juan in Moonlight, Mahershala Ali's character. He reminded me of him as a guardian figure in some sense, but also in Mahershala Ali, it was noteworthy when he won the Oscar for Moonlight, because he's only in the movie for, I think, like 15 minutes, and that's it. It was one of the shortest screen time.
That's like Glenn Ross levels of like, pop in here for a scene and I get the Oscar.
It wasn't as short as Alec Baldwin's and Glenn Ross, but it was almost as short. But like, you felt Mahershala Ali's presence in Moonlight long after he disappeared as you followed the life of Chiron. Where here, it's kind of like that scene Joe brought up when the guy wants to ride Mouse's bike when he's on a date with Shay. You feel like you almost feel Black's presence in that scene. And you feel like the push-pull of being cool and flexing versus Black's, who's like, do what's right, keep your head down, grind. You got to do that. You got to stay on your, you know what I mean? You got to stay on your grind. Don't let anybody see you down. Don't come at me with your head down and your eyes to the ground. You feel his presence throughout it, and it's a testament to how great Meek Mill is.
Like, I love too, like, that character literally is just like, hey, yeah, I'll give you a bike. You got to build it yourself. And like, he just sees like how devoted the kid is compared to his other two friends, and he brings it up to him. He's like, you're different from your friends. Always remember that. Like, you gotta be careful with the people you hang out with. He even points to the midnight clique that is outside of his garage every night doing their thing. He's like, you gotta be careful, otherwise, you might end up with like crews like this. Can I just say too, I'm so glad this was a coming of age movie where it wasn't like about this kid who started off in this poor neighborhood and then grew up, became successful, and moved out of it. I'm glad it really focused on in life you're gonna be handed a deck of cards. Play the best you can with the hand you're dealt. Like especially by the end of this movie too. Like you're just like, oh thank God, man, this kid actually really did play the best he could with everything that was given to him.
What was the movie White Boy Rick? White Boy Rick.
Oh God, nobody remembers that one.
No one remembers that movie, and for good reason. But like, this was kind of giving me those vibes, but it executed it way better. Where I mean, first of all, Mouse didn't become a massive crime lord for the Baltimore area, and then just like that was really weird how that went down. And also, Mouse was actually pretty good in this movie compared to, unfortunately, the actor who played White Boy Rick, and also even like 8 Mile to a degree, like just that sense of like just really grounded in whatever, which I'm really harping on, but that's what really struck me most about this film. And I don't know. I don't know if we mentioned her yet. Teyonah Parris as Terry, playing the kind of again a lot of stereotypes here, a lot of cliches, but as the mother figure, hardworking single mother.
Dude, I love the portrayal of her in this movie though as the black single mom.
Why was it? Why did it feel different? I can't put my finger on it.
Because just how like the language she was using towards her kid compared to like I think like that like compared to like other like movies where it's a single mom, like they're always trying to be so nice, and then of course you get to the breaking point like you do with every coming of age film where they have the argument and they throw him out of the house like they did in The King of Staten Island too. Like it's just here she is just on his ass constantly.
She talks like a mom. You know what I mean? Like why haven't you been going to the fucking vet? You know what I mean? And she talks like a
better
mom
not leave
does,
this motherfucking house.
A stressed, overworked mom too. That's the other thing. And can I just say there was a moment that struck me. It's not the most nuanced moment in the world, but I did like it. The scene when she's interrogating Mouse for why he hasn't gone. The kid's an aspiring veterinarian who volunteers at an animal hospital, and he kind of cuts his job. This scene, I'll tell you right now, I don't know if you caught it, Joe, when she's grilling him about not going to the vet anymore and going to his doing his volunteer work. She's drinking out of a mug that says "Best Dad."
Yeah.
And that's a conscious decision right there, because in that very moment, she's got to play both roles. She's got to be protector and disciplinarian in that scene. It's not the most subtle of scenes. I'm not saying it's, it's French New Wave and its subtlety, but it's good. It's quality. And that's another thing about this movie, too, where body language and mannerisms. You could tell the director, I'm surprised we haven't mentioned him yet, Angel Manuel Soto. It's amazing, too, how cognizant he is, given that this is one of his first major films, one of his first major projects. He's very cognizant, not only as a director, as in terms of shots and looks and inclusions in the scene, but evidently, given the fact that we have not heard of 2/3 of this cast, he's evidently a good acting coach too.
Yeah,
especially.
Go ahead. Angel Manuel Soto. One of us just has to go with it. Angel Manuel Soto. His filmography is like it just consists of short. It's literally short, and also like it's all shorts except for Charm City Kings. This is really his feature. I take that back. I guess he did a movie called Frailty, but I'm not familiar with this. This is most likely going to be his big. For all intents and
purposes, this is his directorial debut.
At least
for feature
concerning
films.
Concerning the public consciousness. Yeah, this is his big breakthrough. At least we can say that. And this is an incredible one to really in the history of debuts. This is a pretty damn good one because it's got a lot of heart. You're directing kids, like, dude, that's a nightmare. But you found the right kids here, man. And to have it just be so weighted but also light at the same time, like it really is an incredible balancing act, because like if you measure the violence in this movie, like the weight of a gun, not like the physical weight, but like the presence of a weapon is really felt. Like when you see that gun, you feel that, because it's like, oh shit, because they're not firing a gun every 2 minutes here, right? They're not executing dudes left and right. when the violence is leveraged, it is weighted just from the fact that everything else is absent of it.
I think also too. I mean, like, because I'm assuming you watched The Wire since you mentioned it earlier.
I need to rewatch it. I've seen like I think season 3 randomly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just knowing how violent that show gets in Baltimore, like
Yeah.
anytime a gun did pop up, I always said, all right, anybody could die in this scene. The main character can literally get killed here.
It's honestly like Sons of Anarchy is even like bigger on that. I've seen more Sons of Anarchy, and by the end of Sons of Anarchy, it's like 10 dudes like dying per episode, and I'm like, God damn! If this was really happening in the streets of a California town, they would rename it like Massacreville and just freaking they would call the National Guard. This is
so I was just gonna say the National Guard would be up and down streets if that was it was that violent. But I will say, moving towards closing arguments, we don't have to go there yet. But I will say, I think the biggest detriment for Charm City Kings, I can even live with the tropes. It's not so much that. The biggest detriment to Charm City Kings, I think, is the way it kind of hurls itself towards this high-stakes climax that, despite the climate in which we've been in for about 2 hours at that point, it feels a little bit too extreme.
Yeah.
It feels almost a little bit too extreme, just the way the dominoes fall and how quickly they fall.
By its own standards, it feels out of place.
By its own standards set, it feels like it gets to that point too quickly. Now, however, though, it does. I'm twofold on it because it works itself to provide this ending of that involves self-sacrifice and new beginnings. But I like that part of it. But it comes off as like obligatorily explosive. Like it needed to be explosive in order to have that resonating moment at the very end and that moment of sacrifice. But at the same, I just think it got there too quickly. I'm not saying this needed to be 2.5 hours long, but it felt like it got there too quickly. Your thoughts?
I agree with you there because this is the two complaints I have is when we get to that climax, I was just like, shit, this kind of just feels like it's coming out of left field at this point with what we're about to do here. Like, especially with how crazy it goes down in the and how it ends too. I was just like, oh shit, all right. The other complaint I had was we've been hammering it throughout the whole review, but yeah, it is very cliched, and there are moments where like they have to hit certain beats with even just outside of the whole coming of age tropes, just like general film tropes as well that it does like. I was just going at least through the second act. There were moments I was just like, man, I wish we could just like cut past this and like do something different at least with it. If there's any complaint I had, it's that the second act for me, there were just moments where like I kind of felt like the film was slowing down in terms of pacing because we were just hitting the same beats we see with a lot of these films, and I kind of wish like, if anything, you cut those scenes out and we could have built a better way to where it gets to this like high stakes robbery at the end to where like the boys really want to prove themselves to the Midnight Clique, and I was just like, that probably would have worked better.
You say high stakes robbery, but it's
it's high stakes for
Korean shop.
It's high stakes for 13-year-olds, man.
Yeah, that's as far as we'll get with any kind of spoilers. But in terms of like, in terms of how it gets, I actually really appreciated that the climax and where things go. But yeah, getting there, it's hard to pinpoint, right?
Yeah.
It can't be like this was the scene that ruined it. These were the two characters, or this was the line, or whatever. No, it's really hard to pace because it's a you take one half of you take a little bit out of the equation here, you mess up the equation later here on.
I think it's the pacing we're beefing with here.
It's also because it feels like Mouse just kind of goes like he's slowly building his way to like where he gets to at that point. But then, like, you hit that point in the film, and it's like he's a whole different character. Like, there was, like, a whole arc we kind of missed where he was going to get to that point where it's like, yeah, let's do this. Let's rob this place.
And he starts taking charge of his life the way he gets surly then with not only, he walks out on his mother, he cuts off Detective Rivers. He's, like, getting this more active, authoritative part, but then he kind of goes along with this.
Yeah.
He follows the group again, which that was a friction there that I couldn't shake.
I think it's down to, and the fact that we're having trouble pinpointing this means that that's a kind of a credit to the movie in a weird way, but I think it just comes down to like reminding the themes. Like it's like placing the nugget of information earlier for it to pay off in a way, right? It's like I, money was like money becomes the big thing later, but like we didn't feel necessarily the absence of money to a big degree. Obviously this is not this is a poor neighborhood. This is they're living hard. It's hard times. And but like literally the opening scene is Mouse handing a dude like a big wad of cash, which he had been obviously saving up, but like he's handing
paying
him
his
money
sister off to not rat him out to the mom.
Paying his sister off constantly. It's like we're seeing you spend a lot of money here, Mouse. So I don't know. Are you really hurting for it? Maybe you overspent. I don't know. So in that way, maybe, and in other things too, like you guys might disagree with me on this, and I'm kind of back and forth. But I feel like the veterinarian angle maybe could have been more reminded throughout the film, because it kind of like it comes in when it needs to come in very conveniently, as opposed to being really baked in. Because kind of like a little more, you kind of told me more that. Well, no, see, again, I'm back and forth. Because like you did show him liking the animals more, and I don't know.
It's a tricky dance, ain't it?
It's a tricky dance, and again, the fact that I'm really being pinpoint about this is a credit to the film. But again, I'm getting a little nitpicky here, but I think that's what it is. It's just very fine tuning of pacing, placing nuggets of information or nuggets of story elements that will pay off later, and maybe just the impact there, and easing. I'm being so abstract, but if you've seen it, hopefully you know what I'm talking about, where it paces itself better, and it feels more earned and feels smoother.
Fair point there. I mean, to move into closing arguments, I would say, or to closing thoughts, if you will. Charm City Kings, though, I thoroughly enjoyed this as a coming-of-age movie, as a showcase of a plethora of young talent, and the flexing of someone who looks to be a very good director in the making in Angel Manuel Soto, excuse me. I love Jahi Di'Allo Winston. This kid, I will say it again, is going to be a star. I think if put on the right track, I think this kid can be big. It's very, you don't get taken by, young actors' performances super often. Like, this is one of their first things they're doing and they blow you out of the water. This is one of those cases. He's that good. And alongside Meek Mill, another person who's not really an actor by trade, but still does a very good job at his performance, just a gravity loan to his character, Blacks as well. And I really admired, too, even for all the tropes, too, and even a hurried climax, I really like the fact that this movie is very similar to A Bronx Tale. It helps I just watched it again a couple months ago. It's very similar to A Bronx Tale in that regard.
Sorry, just to interrupt. Just the thing about the tropes, I forgot to mention. It's like, when tropes bother you, that means they did the tropes bad. When they did not bother me at all here, really that much, like barely at all.
Yeah.
And that's because literally every story is gonna have a dozen tropes probably, and like that's completely fine with me as long as you do it well and in a fresh enough way, or even just not even necessarily being too fresh with it, but just doing it solidly and doing it well so that I can suspend disbelief enough. Anyway, sorry.
That's the thing. We kind of brought that up even with Just Mercy, where like both of these films, they hit the tropes and like we kind of like go like, okay, here we go, here's this part. But they're not done bad. They're done with great acting. There's good writing. There's even, in this movie, beautiful cinematography and stunt work on these bikes that while these things are going on, you're getting distracted by everything else. That like it's not making you go, oh, we're dealing with this shit again in another one of these movies.
Yeah, it doesn't make you groan, and that's probably the best thing I can say.
Yeah.
I give it 3 out of 4 stars. I think it's an acting showcase, a compelling drama, and everything in between. This is a great watch. Highly recommended. It is on HBO Max. I'll turn it over to my lovely coworkers to give their final thoughts on Charm City Kings.
I'm right there.
I was gonna say, I'm like, I'll throw it to Joe. You took it right there.
I'll give it 3 out of 4 stars too. I'm really glad we did end up watching this and reviewing this, because I've been seeing it on YouTube before every video I watch, and I'm like, damn, I kind of want to check this out. Like, I keep seeing advertisements for it, and if you have not checked it out yet, I highly recommend it. I'm hoping this review sold you from like how many films we've compared it to as well, and you might be like, well, shit, I love the Karate Kid, and this is Karate Kid with dirt bikes? That sounds awesome. So
Nothing else.
yeah, I'm hoping we sold it on you. Like Steve said, it's a very good drama. It's got great performances, especially from its lead. I can't wait to see where Winston goes from here, and even the director as well. Yeah, 3 out of 4 stars from me. I'm glad HBO picked this up, honestly, because this was supposed to go to theaters, and I'm glad they got it on their streaming service.
Dom, send us home.
When a movie at its credits makes you sit there and go, damn, dude. Yeah, that was like it makes you think, like, you have instant nostalgia for it, which is nostalgia is a very overwrought, overused term, and appropriately so, because it's leveraged so much as a currency in today's overstuffed art-filled world in so many ways. But just having that instant nostalgia, honestly, it's like a feeling I rarely ever get, except maybe like finishing a book. I'm not a big reader, but like I got that watching this movie, and to see effectively debut his work here, Angel and Manuel Soto, and a lot of incredible breakthrough performances here from this cast. So many awesome debuts, so many awesome, like really, really fascinating performances here. That when it all culminates, and then when you can all look back on it on this awesome journey for any coming of age film, if you can nail that aspect of a journey and look back on it and be really satisfied, that is the feeling that every director, every writer, every whatever wants to give their audience, and I felt it here. And the pacing may have been a little weird, adding that small kind of like montage of crime at the end, where it's like, yeah, this is how we make our money, and it's like, okay, that was a little weird because like we're almost done, but whatever. Because like I was expecting like another hour and a half of film, maybe a whole new movie, right? Did you feel that too?
When I got there, I literally flicked my Xbox controller. I'm like, dude, wait, hold on, how much movie do we have left? I'm like, we're being introduced to the crime world now.
Yeah. But dude, this is a Charm City Kings. Just completely flew in on that bike in my world, and it went off into the sunset like a romantic hero, like a legend that it is. So Charm City Kings, yeah, 3.5 out of 4 stars for me. It gave me that feeling, and I awarded doubly so.
Don't you love when you watch a good movie and you're reminded why you love movies?
Yeah, 100%. This is one of those. Man.